Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm only able now to rise for the first time to address the substance of this debate, having been here for several hours, and I'm grateful to have a chance to put the question to the member for Kingston and the Islands. While we've been debating, I received an email from a 19-year-old young woman in my riding who wrote me this. Her name's Rachel. I didn't get her permission to use her last name, so I'll just read this for Rachel. She wants her voice heard. I do not want to have to explain to my future children that I was alive when refugees were turned away from the United States while Canada did nothing. I understand that some statements have been made. However, I believe that action needs to be taken. I would like to ask you to try to ensure that we are on the right side of history. I applaud so much that the Liberal government has done in bringing in 40,000 Syrian refugees. I appreciate the Prime Minister taking an early stand, and the symbolism is profound that our new Minister of Immigration is himself a refugee originally from Somalia. But symbolism and good wishes will not be enough if this is what it's going to. Amnesty International is right. The Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers is right. The 200 law professors who signed this letter are correct. We need to take action proactively before people are caught in the jaws of a reckless and discriminatory government. The Prime Minister doesn't have to attack him, or the President of the United States. He can try to have good relations, but by our actions we will be known.
The honourable member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleague for not only addressing her question here, but for raising that of one of her constituents who has written into her. I think that's extremely noble. But I would argue that there has not been merely symbolism coming from this government. As pointed out by other colleagues this evening, this government has delivered 40,000 Syrian refugees alone last year to Canada. It's done so much more than the Conservatives did when they were in power, Madam Speaker, and more than the NDP had committed to doing in their election platform. So, you know, I appreciate her comments. I disagree that it's just about symbolism. I think that this government has shown actual, real leadership when it comes to this particular
Speaker, I also want to thank my honourable colleague from Etobicoke Centre, and also I have been delinquent in not thanking profoundly the member for Vancouver East for bringing this emergency motion here tonight. The nature of the Safe Third Country Agreement is explained in the open letter that's been referred to many times this evening, and that is that our immigration legislation indicates that in determining whether a country should be designated as safe for refugees, consideration must be given, I'm quoting the letter, to the country's human rights record and to whether the country complies with the 1951 Refugee Convention and the Convention Against Torture. This letter, signed by eminent jurists, law professors, concludes that currently the executive orders the President has made, combined with his musing that torture works and why not, they say, we note that these executive orders are inconsistent with the 1951 Refugee Convention and the Convention Against Torture and the UN Declaration on Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and so on. I know that as things now stand, the Minister of Immigration has answered this question. Minister of Immigration can, as an individual minister, immediately suspend this in order to ensure that no one is trapped, no one is prevented from finding safe haven in Canada if they happen to be in the U.S. And I would ask the honourable member if he would consider, and I think there are other honourable members in the Liberal caucus who may agree, that this should be a subject for ongoing debate and that the government should change its mind.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
I fully agree that this is an issue for ongoing debate, and in fact it's an issue, as are many of the issues that this presidential decree has raised, that we are seeking clarity, that we're monitoring very carefully, and as of the present time, the U.S. government continues, as far as we can tell, to meet the conditions of the agreement. That does not mean that we're not monitoring. We are monitoring. We are watching and making sure that, in fact, those conditions are being met.